Hi everyone, welcome back. I know it's been a minute since I've posted here on YouTube and the holiday madness has absolutely gotten to me, but I'm so excited to be back today with a fun holiday themed Christmas card for all of you. Now today's card is inspired by one of my very favorite things about the holidays, and that is Christmas sweaters. Now technically what I'm wearing here is a sweatshirt, but details. Details. And while we're speaking of Christmas sweatshirts, if you didn't know, I actually designed these sweatshirts and have them available for sale right now. They are a fun Christmas sweater design that says Merry Craftmas, of course, a fun little play on words there. And instead of your traditional reindeer and Santa Claus, it has scissors and envelopes and tape and all that fun stuff. It comes in a couple of fun colors. I'm wearing the navy, of course. It also is available in green. And I also have a t-shirt version as well for those of you who maybe live in warmer climates. I also have a couple of other fun designs available as well that would work all year round, such as the supplies list hoodie and this trust the process design. If you're interested in shopping this collection, I will leave the link down below. As always, no pressure ever to buy anything you see on this page, but if you do make a purchase, it goes to support me in this channel and I greatly appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and jump into why you came here, which is the Christmas card. But before we do, please know I have another very special, honestly more exciting than the Christmas sweatshirts announcement coming at the end of this video. It's a secret I've been keeping for a while now, and I'm just really excited to finally share it. But for now, let's jump into the card. All right, so you'll notice in today's card, it's kind of a mashup of different products and brands and techniques to make this card that I have in my mind a reality. But the first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and grab a 8.5 by 11 inch piece of white cardstock. I'm actually using kind of an off-white ivory colored cardstock, and I'm gonna cut it in half and then cut it in half once more. And then I'm going to keep my 4.25 by 5.5 inch panel, and that's what we're going to work with to start with. And then go ahead and grab your other bigger half that you cut off and put it off to the side, because that will be our card base later on. So the first thing we're going to do with this card is create a stenciled background. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab my waffle flower grip mat so that I can hold my front card panel in place while I stencil. We will be stenciling across the entire front panel, so I don't suggest taping it down on the edges. Now what you could do if you don't have a grip mat is you can apply just the tiniest little bit of tape runner to the back of your card, just a tiny bit so that you can peel your card back up after you're done. But otherwise, if you have some sort of grip mat, I would suggest using that. And then for the background, I am using this Christmas sweater stencil from Hero Arts. I do believe this is a few years old now. I'll have to double check and see if it's still available. If it is, I will of course leave it down in the description. I always try to link all of the products that I use in the description for you guys. The great thing about a grip mat is that grip mat is going to hold my stencil in place now, so I don't even have to tape that. Now the next part is a little tricky because I want to create a red, white, and green Christmas sweater, so I'm going to use some mask tape to actually mask off parts of the stencil so that I can create kind of layers of red, white, and green. And you'll see what I mean here as I go along. The first one will be super simple. All I'm going to do is ink this bottom layer as red. And for today's card, I'm using Lumberjack Plaid just because that's such an iconic Christmas red. Now the tricky thing about this stencil is there are lots of small intricate cuts, so you want to be careful if you're using a stencil like this not to just go and brush and rub the stencil, because you'll end up moving bits of the stencil and your project won't come out looking like you want it to. So if I'm using a really intricate stencil like this, I prefer to use a foam dauber similar to this as opposed to a brush, and then I'll just tap the ink on kind of like this. It's a bit slower, but you'd rather be safe than sorry here. Trust me. Okay, we have the very first line of red down, so I'm going to remove my tape, and then I've already kind of mapped out which parts I want red and which parts I want green. Next, I want to go ahead and move this up here. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to ink all of the red bits first, and then I'll go back and do the green. I'm going to grab a little bit more tape. And this is where things get tricky because I'm going to be really particular about what parts I want green and what parts I want red. And I'm going to zoom you in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So you see on this pattern here where we have kind of these triangles coming down and then we have these points going up in between them. I kind of want the red and the green to be meeting each other. So I want these bottom triangles to be green and then these top ones to be red. So in order to get that look, I'm actually going to have to pull little tiny pieces of my masking tape and mask off these bottom triangles. Okay, I think that's good. You can tell that my fingers are already inky. I have little red fingerprints everywhere, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some more red and apply it to this next line. Okay, I'm gonna say that is pretty good. So let's go ahead and take up our masking tape here. And then the very last thing that I want to make red is just this very top line. So again, just going to move my line of tape up and then dab away. Okay, so I've now applied all the red that I need for our background, so I'm going to go ahead and take this tape up, and then I'm basically going to repeat exactly what you just saw me do for the green. So I'm going to go through and do this entire row green, and then do this row of snowflakes green. And to conserve tape, since this side of my tape is mostly clean, I'm just going to go ahead and lay this down and use that for my green edge, and then I can do the same thing with this one. Now for the green today, we are going to use Rustic Wilderness, which if you've watched many of my videos, you know that this is a green color that I come back to all the time, and I think it's perfect for that holiday green as well. All right, last layer of green is down and we can finally do the grand reveal. Let me just get this last bit of masking tape off. And then you have to peel this stencil up very carefully because again, it is very intricate with a lot of delicate cuts in it. But once our stencil is up, I mean, wow, look how gorgeous that is. I know it's a lot of extra work to do all of that intricate masking, but I mean, look at that gorgeous result compared to if you were to just do the entire background all one color, which I mean, you could totally do that as well. I think a tone-on-tone look would be really cool, like if you did a red on top of a red paper. You could get a very minimal kind of monotone look, but I'm absolutely loving this old-fashioned, you know, red, white, and green. It feels very nostalgic for me. Okay, so now that we have the background done, I want to go ahead and get started on the elements that'll be on top of our background. And I kind of have this idea in mind of having Christmas sweaters kind of hanging from the top like they're on a clothesline almost. However, I went through my entire stash of stamps and dies, and trust me all, there's a lot of them, and I couldn't find any Christmas sweater stamps or dies in my stash. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and pull in my Cricut to assist me with this. And this is one of those times where I find it's really beneficial to embrace both your traditional handmade card making and some of the new age, more electronic techniques, if you will. I feel like if you're embracing the best of both worlds, you'll always end up with a result that you're happier with. And if it's within your means, I don't think that you have to choose one or the other. Today I am using my Cricut Joy Xtra, which is basically the larger version of the regular Cricut Joy that you've probably seen me use before. And frankly, you could do what we're doing today on the regular Cricut Joy as well. My sticky mat for my Extra is just stickier. So I thought that I would have an easier time just using this today. Now to get the elements I want to use, I'm going to have to run this mat through a few times with a few different colors of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then once the cutting's out of the way, I will meet you on the other side. All right, we have little Christmas sweaters now. How adorable is that? For the white here, I just used the same ivory white that I used for our background. And then I used 3 Hero Arts paper colors, which were Nautical, Pine, and Cranberry. Fun fact, Nautical is one of my absolute favorite blue papers. I'm just throwing that out there. And so what I'm going to do next is just simply glue these together. So I'm going to apply some liquid glue very carefully because these are very intricate little dies, and glue them onto their respective bases. Okay, and just like that, we have created 3 adorable little Christmas sweaters and our Craftmas sentiment. The only thing missing, of course, is Merry for Merry Craftmas, but I think I'm going to do that with just a normal stamp. So I've decided to go for a heat embossing look for Mary, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that same green cardstock, apply some anti-static powder so I don't have any straggling embossing powder, and then I have this very tiny Mary stamp here in this small stamp set, so I'll grab that, apply it to my stamp block, hopefully I can put it on there straight, and then ink it up using my Versamark ink. Now we'll add the embossing powder. Looks pretty good to me, so let's go ahead and zap it. Now, if you have that extra anti-static powder on there, I just use a barely damp paper towel and kind of buff it off. If you want to be extra safe, you can use a dry paper towel, but I find that it's not necessarily as successful for me. And then I'm not going to get too fancy here, but I am going to go ahead and cut this sentiment strip with some scissors. I'm not sure yet if I want to do a banner or just I think let's just do a regular old rectangle. The banner might be a little too fancy. That's not the straightest rectangle in the world, but I think it will do. Not too bad for eyeballing. Actually, I am going to try to straighten it up a little bit. And this is where things usually go south, right? It's usually best just to leave things alone. But I don't know. Is that better or worse? Either way, I think it's fine. Whatever. We'll roll with it. Okay, so layout of the card. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Craftmas down here with our little Mary on top. I'll probably put both of these on foam tape, or you could stack cardstock if you wanted to. And then the vision is to kind of have these Christmas sweaters hanging down on a clothesline from the top. What do you think of that? Obviously, I need to get a clothesline. Okay, now the only string I have on hand is kind of this candy cane red and white looking string. I think that's fine, but I'm actually going to try separating the red and the white and see if I like it better with just the white. Just because I feel like there's a lot of patterns going on already. I don't know if we want necessarily another pattern in the clothesline, right? Now, if you had some like embroidery thread, that would be perfect for this. I think I do like the white better than the red and the white, but will I like the red? Ooh, I kind of like the red. You know what? I think we'll go with the red. So how do I want to do this? Maybe just laying it out. Didn't think this part through fully. Guess the best way to glue it on is probably just with liquid glue, right? Might have to speed up this decision-making process here, depending on how this goes. But you know what might be a good idea is maybe, well, no, this is fine. This is fine, this is fine. I'm just gonna add a little dot of glue over it as well. And then same thing over here. Full disclosure, there's probably a better way to do this. So take my suggestion here with a grain of salt. I think the better thing to do would have probably been to maybe sandwich the layers with the string in between the layers. Do you know what I mean? Because there's 2 layers for each sweater. But I am just going to kind of let that sit for a second. Actually, while that's drying, why don't we go ahead and adhere our little sentiments here. I'm going to use foam tape just because I've already put my Cricut away, so I don't want to grab it back out. But it might look even better if you were to just layer the sentiment. And then let's go ahead and add a little extra foam tape to this guy. That way they are on the same field. And one reason you want to add dimension to these guys is our background is quite busy, right? So this will help the sentiment kind of lift off the page a little bit. Okay, and then I am going to add a tiny bit of liquid glue to this before I start placing it, just so that I have a little more insurance and can wiggle it around if I need to. Gorgeous. I believe that's pretty straight. And then we'll just go ahead and nestle the Mary right there, kind of above the tail end of the word, the mas, if you will. Now that I'm looking at me, part of me is wishing I used the red paper just to add a little contrast here, but I don't know. Maybe I do like it. I don't know. I'm so indecisive, y'all. And one thing we might be able to do to help here, just to help this glue maybe dry faster, is I'm actually going to attach a little tiny piece of paper to the back as well. Now, is that really doing anything? I don't know, but in my head it makes sense. Okay, so at this point, I do believe it's dry enough to go ahead and add our sweaters to the card. So what I'm going to do is just line them up here and kind of note where the string falls off the card. And then I'm going to carefully put over and then adhere the string to the back of the card. Now, for just a second, I'm going to use tape runner. I know that's not a super strong hold, but you'll see why it doesn't really matter here in a second. We're going to be gluing this guy down to a card base anyway, so this is going to get basically glued down a second time. Just going to flip it over to make sure that looks fairly even. There we go. That works for me, so I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And then I'm going to bring my card base back in. And I'm going to score my card base here just at 4 1/4. I picked up the Scor-BUDDY recently. I've been using the regular Scor-Pal, which is the much larger 12 by 12 version. And I've really enjoyed using this smaller format recently. I didn't think it would make much of a difference, but it's so much easier to pick it up and move it around my craft room. Okay, so for the back of my card, or I guess the front, depending on how you look at it, I'm going to use some liquid glue to glue down our card base. And this is why I didn't care too much about the tape runner that I used, because I knew that I was just going to add this guy back down with some glue anyway. Now, it does look like my card base is actually a little wider than my card panel, but that's an easy fix. I'm just going to go in with my scissors here and trim it off. And now we're good to go. And that is the finished card. Merry Craftmas featuring our little clothesline of Christmas sweaters. Now, I think maybe it could have gotten pulled up a little bit, but honestly, I think it's still very cute. I like that it's not necessarily adhered to the card, so it can kind of flip around if you know, it makes it a little more interactive. Now, if you didn't want it to do that, I would probably just add the tiny little thin foam tapes on the back just to keep it in place. But either way, I think it's super cute. You can also do this in a ton of different ways. I've actually did a similar card back around Valentine's Day where I had a string of hearts falling down. So you can kind of take this design and make it as you wish. But yeah, I think it's super cozy, super nostalgic, and I would love to receive this in the mail. So I think it's a super fun idea. As always, if you're interested in making this yourself, I will go ahead and leave the supplies linked down in my description. Now, the sweater designs I actually got off of Cricut Design Space, so I can't really leave those, but I found these just by searching Christmas sweater on Design Space. All right, y'all, I hope you enjoyed that card. I personally think it's just adorable and so nostalgic looking. It makes me so excited for the holidays. And if you're feeling all of that cozy Christmas goodness now and you feel like you need a new Christmas sweatshirt, I will leave the link to mine in the description box below. Again, no pressure, but it's there if you would like to support me. And then finally, for the announcement that I teased at the beginning of the video, drum roll, please. Okay, so this won't be much of an announcement if you follow me closely on social media, but I haven't actually told you in a proper YouTube video yet, but I am very excited to announce that I am coming out with my own product line. And while I'm excited enough to be coming out with my own product line of stamps, dies, stencils, all the fun creative things you see me use on this channel, I am even more excited that I am doing it in partnership with one of my very favorite brands and companies, Hero Arts. So starting February of next year, you will be able to purchase the co-branded line of stamps, dies, stencils, etc. from myself and Hero Arts. The goal, of course, is that it'll be available at all major retailers where you buy stamps and dies today. It's a little too soon to promise exactly where they will be, but my goal is to make this line as accessible as possible to you guys. Now, if you've been following me for any time at all, you know that I love Hero Arts. I've been a fan of their products since day one, and working with them has absolutely just a dream come true. If you've been around the card making world for a while, you know that Hero Arts is an absolute pillar of this industry. They've been around for 50 years, and they've made such an incredible name and legacy for themselves in this space. I fell in love with their products. They're super high quality, eco-friendly, made in America. I've been working on this first collection that's coming out in February with the team for a while now, and I can tell you that the people behind the scenes are just equally as great. So all that to say, I'm super excited. Obviously, you can't get the products yet, but they will be out here soon at the beginning of next year. And also just a massive thank you to all of you who watch my content and support me, whether that's just watching, liking, commenting, whatever. This year has been absolutely crazy for me. And if you would have told me at the beginning of this year that I would be planning a product line for next year, I would have thought you were crazy. But it's an absolute dream come true, and I couldn't do it without all of you, so thank you. And with that, Merry Craftmas, everyone, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, y'all.